Jim cheered as he heard the news that he'd be getting an unexpected raise. His pay was going to be going $1 an hour more than he was making before. So he was planning on how he was going to spend that extra $160 a month. That day was full of smiles for Jim, and it would be full of smiles for us too. I mean, who wouldn't like to make more money doing the same job? Jim's place of employment paid their employees minimum wage. That's why he got his raise. The government demanded that the federal minimum wage be raised $1 an hour more. The people who were getting paid the salary were truly happy when this happened, but their happiness and their smiles turned to frowns in a short period of time. Now, when I say $7.25, what does that remind you guys of? Exactly. I mean, it could be a lot of different things, but it is the minimum wage. The minimum wage is the amount that the lowest wage an employer can pay their employee for every hour of work they do. Now, the question, should the minimum wage be raised, is a question that we face and the government faces all the time. And I'm here to persuade you that the minimum wage should not be raised and should remain at $7.25 an hour. The main points I will cover today are what the minimum wages raises looked like in the past, the effects it could have if it was raised, and the action I want you guys to take. So the minimum wage has been a subject that I've been passionate about for a number of years now. And so you guys should listen to me because of my personal experiences I've had and all the research I've done. The topic is important to each and every one of you because it has probably affected you or someone you know in the past, or it could be affecting them right now. So do you guys remember Jim and his story? But just how serious is this problem? The problem is many individuals are are pushing for a minimum wage increase, which causes protests. Many being workers who make the minimum wage. In November of 2016, a huge protest protesting minimum wage to be raised to $15 an hour occurred all over the U.S. in many different cities. This was one of the biggest minimum wage protests since the protests of 2012, which was known as the Fast Food Forward movement, that protested that minimum wage for fast food workers be raised so they could, quote, make a decent living. But besides just protest, an increase in minimum wage in the past has caused the economy to have negative effects. According to an article by Mark J. Perry, after the last minimum wage increase, which was in 2009, says that teenage unemployment, minus the overall unemployment rate, went from being 14.5% to being 16.25%. Or in other words, teenage unemployment went up by 21%. So some of you guys probably have a part-time job right now, and maybe not right now, maybe in the future. Studies have shown that most minimum wage workers are below the age of 25. So that's us, college students, going to school full-time and working part-time on the side. The problem minimum wage causes through protests and the division of workers is a problem that is relevant to all of us. It sounds too great to conquer, but don't worry, there is a solution. So now a lot of you guys are probably thinking that the minimum wage should be raised, and because of a lot of different things. Many because of how, so here's a couple of things, maybe reasons why you guys think it should be raised. Because of how close one comes to the poverty line when working full-time, making minimum wage. Maybe how the dollar value has decreased since 2009, and maybe you don't believe that a minimum wage increase causes inflation or unemployment. These are all very good counter-arguments. When looking at the facts, according to U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 3% of all hourly workers are paid minimum wage, which is a small portion of the workforce. And out of that 3%, as I said earlier, most of those workers are below the age of 25. Minimum wage was never created for a wage that was created so that one could live off of. Rather, it was a wage designed for younger workers working part-time, trying to get job experience. Now, the dollar value in 2017 compared to 2009 is about 12 cents less. So in other words, if you buy something back in 2009 for $1, today it costs around $1.12. And now, many argue that if the dollar is not worth the same as it was, then shouldn't the minimum wage be raised to account for that 12 cents? An increase would not solve that problem though. Because of the inflation that would occur, the workers would have to be making more money, but in the long run would just have to give right back due to the increase in prices. Now, if you go back and look at every time the minimum wage was increased in the past, you notice the pattern that inflation and unemployment follow the graph, almost identical, as seen right here. In the past, when there was a raise, employers were forced to pay their employees more than they did before, which meant if they had a certain budget they had to pay for the labor, then they would have to either lay off workers to keep that budget, or they'd have to raise their prices in order to pay the workers that increase, so causing the unemployment and inflation. inflation rates to go up. A simple solution to these problems would be for unskilled workers to learn new skills that make them more competitive for better paying jobs, find a new job that pays better, or go to school to get an education, which would hopefully pay better than minimum wage. I mean, I really hope so. And then, so don't push for a minimum wage increase. Rather, work hard and take one of the 3 actions I just stated. Now, I want you guys to imagine a future with the same minimum wage. As I said earlier, instead of a pay increase, minimum wage workers should learn new skills that make them more competitive for higher paying jobs. This would benefit the economy greatly by providing better workers for jobs, a more competitive workforce, an increase in diversity to choose from when hiring, and an increase in work productivity. Therefore, less individuals would need government, and then this would help minimum wage workers get out of poverty, which would therefore cause less individuals to need help from government. This would benefit you guys by keeping the inflation rates down, the unemployment rates down, and the economy would be thriving, which could put more money in our pockets. Now I want you guys to imagine a future with the minimum wage increase, which is, which in this earlier is what Jim and other workers were experiencing. The inflation and unemployment rates would also increase. Higher paid workers might suffer pay cuts, and the list just keeps going on. So basically, the increase would not just affect minimum wage workers, it would affect the whole workforce as a whole and in a negative way. The economy would definitely be affected negatively from the increase in minimum wage. An example of this could be a movie theater. So if the minimum wage was increased, movies would probably go up, the concessions prices would go up, and the workers' pay would go up. As a result, people maybe wouldn't come to see as many movies, they wouldn't buy concessions, or they wouldn't go out to eat afterwards. Overall, some business would be affected, which would hurt the economy, and which would overall come back and hurt the people, which is you and me. So, as I have stated throughout this presentation, the federal minimum wage should not be raised and should remain at $7.25 an hour. There are some benefits that would come with the raise, but the cons, the negative benefits outweigh the positive by a huge amount. I want you guys to take the action and not support protests that are about to raise minimum wage. Rather, I want you guys to support the government's decision about minimum wage and keep going to school. That way, you don't have to worry about that $7.25, also known as the minimum wage. Thank you, guys.